The hearing, we want to bring in CBS News Justice and Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Vackays and also CBS News Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett, who clearly is traveling with the president in sunny West Palm Beach, Florida. All right, so listen, Jeff, we're going to start with you. So we heard what Hannity claimed, and later on he said that, he only ever sort of sought out real estate advice from Cohen. Explain to people why this is significant.
Well, we'll have to see whether he is somehow caught up in this investigation, and there's no indication of that just yet. What we learned yesterday is that Cohen has these three clients, President Trump being one of them. Elliot Broidy, who's a top Republican fundraiser, is another. And Broidy, it was revealed last week, paid $1.6 million to a woman. Cohen was involved in that. So now whether Hannity fits in there somewhere, I mean, we know Cohen is a fixer. That's what he does. Now, Cohen, as you said that there was only a relationship where they talked about real estate. Right. We'll have to see.
And part of the prosecution's argument in regards to Cohen is that he's not really operating as a lawyer very often anyway, and he was sort of trying to prove, no, I have clients as a lawyer. Yeah. And here are a couple of them.
Well, and that is true, right. But the prosecutors have the point. I mean, I've talked to Cohen over the last year numerous times, and we've talked about the fact that he is considered a fixer, and that wasn't something that he shied away from in our conversations. In fact, he seemed to relish that term when I used it to describe him.
All right, indeed. So, Major, the judge denied a request from President Trump's lawyers to allow the president to get a first look at the documents that were seized. What does the president's legal team feel is at risk?
Well, they are fearing unfettered access to everything that was seized, and they would like to have some delay and some procedural certainty about who gets to see what and under what conditions. And there was a legal skirmish yesterday. The president's lawyers believe they won more than they lost because they've at least put a judge, or had a judge rule that a judge will be a part of this process, not one run entirely by the prosecution, and that they will have also some access to the evidence that was seized. So on two requests, access to the evidence that was seized for the Michael Cohen's attorneys and the president, they got a judge to agree to that, and that a judge will oversee the process, not the prosecution. They believe they won there. So they believe they won more than they lost. And there is a sense that they don't know all the evidence that was seized. They'd like to know what it is, first of all, and then, once you know what it is, build your level of defense, or at least your response to that evidence, but you can't begin any of that if the prosecution's holding it, and you don't have access to it, and there's no process by which you're comfortable reviewing it. So those procedural things, and there are many, many more legal skirmishes to come, for sure, they believe they at least got some of what they saw.
So, Jeff, one of the ideas that was floated, one of the things that the judge can do is appoint a special master. What is that? How does that process work?
Well, the judge is weighing to appoint this special master, as it's called, and this is someone who will oversee this process of trying to determine whether the information seized, the documents, some of the communications are covered by attorney-client privilege. Now, this is
somebody completely independent from the prosecution or
exactly, and it's something that the Cohen team has called for. Now, the judge is weighing that, also weighing whether to allow the Taint team. This is a Justice Department Taint team, and their job is also to weigh through the evidence to see if there's anything that should be covered by attorney-client privilege and should be off limits to investigators. Right. So that is still to come. But, what the Cohen team and the president's team, what they've succeeded in doing here, and I think this is important, is slow this process down, right? So there were some court victories there, but the biggest thing, I think, is that it really slows the investigative process down, and that's certainly something that they want.
You mentioned that the judge is sort of making a final decision on that. What can you tell us about this judge?
Well, Kimba Wood she's a veteran federal judge. I mean, she's been on the bench for about 30 years now. In fact, her name was in the headlines about I don't know, during the Clinton administration. Right. Can't put a year on it, but the Clinton administration, when her name was floated as
I think Major was chiming in 93?
Was it 1993? She was nominated for Attorney General, yes.
1993.
Okay.
See, I was in high school then, so.
What is
just
that?
kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding, Major.
Let's play nice here.
All right.
Jeez.
All right. We're getting off the rails here. We're getting off the rails here. Just because I covered it doesn't mean I'm old, okay?
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that you covered it, but I knew that you did.
All right, let's bring it back in.
All right,
let's bring it back in. Right.
But she is someone who is a veteran judge. She's been around the block. She had some issues, when her name came up as a potential attorney general pick. But she is a veteran on the bench, and you saw that in court yesterday. I go into a courtroom, and typically, these cases are pretty dry, but that was a circus.
Right.
I mean, you had Stormy Daniels there, you had the president's attorneys, you had Cohen's attorneys, you had the prosecutors, and you had Judge Wood. And she was definitive in what she was asking Cohen's attorneys to do, and she demanded that they reveal who this third client was, and it was a really dramatic moment. So she knows what she's doing. She was experienced, and she's tough.
Yeah, definitely. Major, she's got what it takes to handle this, which almost sort of at times takes on a circus-like atmosphere.
Well, so she's the senior judge on the Southern District in New York. She's been on the bench, as Jeff said, for more than 30 years, appointed to that seat under the recommendation of a Republican senator at the time, Alphonse D'Amato, by President Reagan. And the whole thing about Attorney General, Kimba Wood didn't do anything wrong. Kimba Wood had hired an illegal immigrant to be a nanny, paid all the proper taxes, did so when it was not criminal to do so, not covered by a later immigration law that made that illegal. What the problem was for the Clinton administration was the original nominee for Attorney General, Zoe Barrett, had the same problem, but she didn't pay taxes for her illegal immigrant nanny. Kimba Wood did, but when she was asked by the Clinton administration, were there any nanny issues, she didn't answer to their satisfaction, truthfully. So though she did nothing wrong and nothing illegal, it was part of this whole, at the time, called Nannygate syndrome, and the Clinton administration cut its losses and then nominated eventual Attorney General Janet Reno. So Kimba Wood didn't do anything wrong. She got caught up in a political maelstrom, wasn't as candid as she probably should have been with the Clinton administration, but as a judge and as a justice on the bench, as Jeff indicated, because he witnessed it, she knows how to run a courtroom, even in a circus atmosphere.
Right.
See, I wouldn't have had that kind of detail because, okay, I wasn't in high school, but I was in college. I was graduating college at that time.
I thought we put this whole thing to bed,
So where exactly were you, Jeff Pegues?
Okay, hold on.
What exactly were you doing, Jeff
Pegues?
Pegues?
Right now. Major Garrett, I have some very important questions to ask you, and time is running out. You are down there in sunny Florida with the president. And so there's a couple of things, a couple of questions here with the president. First off, we were expecting to hear about sanctions against Russia yesterday. The UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, announced that we were going to learn the details, and then nothing happened. In fact, it sounds like the president may be backtracking on that. What is going on?
He tapped the brakes on this. It's too much to say the sanctions have been taken off the table. They're still under consideration. But clearly the UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, because there were several meetings about this over the weekend, left with a distinct impression, and I'm told by senior administration officials it was not the incorrect impression, it was the correct impression, that sanctions were coming. Against whom? Russians linked to any of, or as much as could be identified, Syria's chemical weapons program, providing materials and other things. Then the president tapped the brakes and said, no, I've got other things I'm dealing with. The president still wants to have a White House summit with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president. That may have been a consideration. The sanctions are still in development, but the president intervened between Sunday and Monday to slow this process down, and that's where the administration is. It has lent an air of confusion, because you don't announce something and create this expectation of the next level of U.S. sanctioning of Russia over chemical weapons to sort of carry on the sense of penalty that is going to be absorbed by those who are associated with the chemical weapons program in Syria, and then pull that off the table, unless something else is at work. And we're not exactly sure all the other dimensions that are at work, but it's the president who taps the brakes on this.
All right, Jeff Pegues, Major Garrett, gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Any more squabbling, please take it outside.
Sure.